Welcome, everyone, to this episode of A Principal's Voices. And I'm Larry Johnson, your host. And I'm really excited to have Peter Larson with me today. You know, those of you who know the show and know me, you know what an affinity slash revulsion I have toward technology. You know, being an engineer myself, I've seen it and I've seen it be introduced into the nonprofit community. And it isn't always pretty. And Peter is going to talk to us about that. He's currently CEO of Culture Fashion. Now that's an interesting name. We may want to get into that. I hope I got that right. But he really has a knowledge of how to use and how not to use technology. So I want to welcome Peter.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Likewise. Now, Peter will tell you that he's currently residing somewhere in Tennessee, probably Franklin, Tennessee.
That's correct.
And those of you who know me know that I grew up in Nashville. Before it was Nashville, I want to make that clear. Now it's a very different thing. And at that time, Franklin was a very sleepy southern post Civil War town. Yeah, very much so. And now it's one huge suburb wedged between Green Hills and Brentwood and somewhere down that way, you know? So, anyway, so how long have you been in Nashville, Peter?
Actually, just a year, almost a year exactly today. So we're
Okay.
pretty new here. We're
Okay.
part of
Well,
the whole migration that has, love it or hate it for the, locals here. We've been part of that.
here in Idaho, we have a migration too, and it's generally people from California,
Mhm.
and they're not really all that enthused. We're not enthused about them either. When I first moved here, well, I came here in '06 and I came here from the East and I still had New York plates on my car. And I said to someone, is that going to be a problem? Oh, no, only if they said California. So,
It's very similar here too. I know it's been the same thing with Californians here, and so when we at least say it's not California, we definitely have a different interaction with
mhm.
people. So,
Well, I don't know what you know about Idaho, but it's definitely a government out of my face state, for sure.
yep.
And it's live and let live. And although this is an interesting thing, you know, libertarians aren't always socially conservative, but
Right.
they're, and we have libertarians here. We have social conservatives here too, but we have libertarians here. It's like government out of my face. What I do in my own time is my own business, you know,
Right.
and they may add a couple of expletives into that too. And uh, and I kind of like that because you know, you don't feel compressed into a mold to do something. And when I first moved out here, and because you know you're from originally from the Midwest, I know that in Minnesota. When I first moved west, the thing that struck me first was the sheer size of everything.
Mm,
It's so big out
same.
here. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're in this valley and you're looking at what they consider the foothills behind Boise, and there's a 2,000 foot elevation change
It's
between the
crazy.
floor of the valley and them.
It's amazing.
And you know, and I that was a and I can see why people would come west and think, oh, there are possibilities here. You know, we're not hemmed in. There's opportunity here. Just the feel of the place. But anyway,
Yep.
so tell me a little bit about you. You're a technologist or an entrepreneur or some of the all of the above. Give our listeners just a little sense of who you are, Peter. Other than you're dashing good looking. Other than that, and if they're seeing this audio, they don't know that.
Well, appreciate that. Um, yeah, I guess my background, it's kind of like I think a lot of people, right? You don't go into, maybe it's the personality, but you don't end up being what you are at the moment because of all of the things that influence you around you at the time, and you just continually, I think, iterate on who you are and what you're doing in the time. And so I didn't go into technology. There was no intention for that. In fact, my background, what I studied when I went to college was I did a double major. I went for music education originally, and I
Okay.
majored in music. I didn't do the education part. I got into the classroom and realized there's no way I would want to do this. And also, I knew it would ruin my, enjoyment of what music was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did a music major. I added on a public relations advertising major. That's what I thought was my, quote unquote career major then. And I actually added on a Russian minor in that too, and just an interest in cultures and languages and all of that. And thought, let's throw that into the mix. So that's just a little bit, I think, of a view of just how even in college, right, iterating on where I was at, what I was doing, what am I skilled in, what am I interested in, and you think about um, both your avocation and your vocation. And I think we find ourselves that there's that tension, right,
Hmm.
that we're trying to figure out in between what is our focus on. Is it, and for me, right, music, that's what I thought was my advocate or my vocation at first. And then you realize like, no, that's not my primary focus. And I really recognized and needed to recognize where that lived in my life so I could, I think, focus properly in that. So anyway, that's what I did in college and ended up actually working at the college, which was the last place I wanted to end up was living in Fargo, North Dakota area. I lived in the Fargo, Moorhead area.
Sounds cold. Sounds really cold.
Not only cold, I mean, and at least I was used to the cold in Minnesota, but what I wasn't used to was the wide open. There is not a tree for miles and miles and miles
A little
walking
windy,
around.
Peter? Just a little windy?
Little, little windy. And I mean, I remember actually when my parents would call and ask, how much snow did you get? It looked like, snow came through. I'm like, it doesn't, it depends. Like on here, there's like half an inch. Over here, there's 12 feet of snow. So I have no idea, how much snow,
Close.
but it was actually the best thing for me. I actually ended up at first in enrollment position there. And this is actually how I got into technology because I was doing I was recruiting, but you become everything. You become an event planner, a family counselor, a financial counselor. You become all of these different roles
Yeah.
wrapped up into one. And one of the roles, though, that people weren't doing was our system. And I wanted our system, you'd come in, you do your work, and sometimes I say I tease that it was out of laziness, right? Because I would see somebody, I have 20 applications I have to send emails to or something, and people would like type out 20 individual emails. I think this could be done better. This has to be done better. So I did grow up a bit of a dork with computers, and I would use computers, and I knew enough about computers to do things, and I was interested in it. And so I started playing with our system, which at the time was based on an Access database. It was really what it was
Hmm.
based on. And it was a system that the College Board, who runs the SAT, had
Yes.
put out
Yes. Hmm.
for schools to use. So I just figured out Access. I was figuring out relationship databases. I was digging into all of that and started making sense of like the power of data for one, and then the power of using that data in an organized, logical workflow kind of manner. And so I started just tinkering with our system. Of course, at a small private college, they're glad for anybody who says they'll take on more responsibility, right? Bring more
Please.
value. Of
Please.
course, you're not going to pay you anymore for that. But I didn't care. I just was interested in doing this, and I wanted to learn more about that. Uh, Excuse me. At least I have to plug in. Um, so I did that and kind of built our whole department, and then expanded into the college even more as to how the system worked for us. Well, then that college board decided to sunset their system. And they said the sunset meant they were actually coming to the campus to uninstall it from everybody's computer. So there was not
Now,
like a, yeah,
now
go ahead.
was is this pre-Windows?
No, no. This was Windows.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
See, I'm the old man. Okay, I'm way pre-Windows. I'm DOS, and also
Yep.
I'm what is it? 80 column punch cards. All right.
Yep.
The first language I learned was Fortran. Uh,
Okay. I've
that
heard of
was,
it.
you've heard of it. You've heard of it. And storage was all on magnetic tape at that time. Um,
Right.
it was fascinating to go up into the area where they all were. That was kind of a viewing level for it, and these things just spinning back and forth constantly, searching for
Yeah.
what they were looking for. And yeah, hmm
It's crazy.
and
Yeah, they
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, well, they came to literally uninstall that system from us. And so we were put in this position of you need a new system. And so the vice president at the time just said, Peter, you need to do this. You just have to go do it, figure it out. And so that's where I started assessing and evaluating how we use technology, what do we need to use technology, and started digging into that process more. And that's where you learn a lot about, I think, the tools and your tech stack and your mix and whatnot, because you just think, oh, just go get a tool. And you have to start asking the business analyst questions that you don't know you
Hmm.
everybody does ask them and they don't know that they're doing that. But the question why do we do this? Because the why is going to help the what and
Oh,
how
yes.
we're going to do this.
So where did you get your counsel? And I'm setting you up here, okay? And what I mean by that is, did you take the advice of the computer hucksters, the guys that were selling this stuff?
I didn't actually.
Mhm.
In fact, it was because so the entrepreneur side of me, right? You kind of had picked up on that and mentioned that. So a friend of mine that had worked with me in the enrollment office, he and I had started some business stuff as well on the side, all based, on technologies and whatnot. And so I had already been doing a bunch of research, knowing that, hey, one thing that everybody needs, every organization, every business, every company needs is at least some central place to house the data that who do I work with? What am I doing? What are the people? What are the kinds of people, that we're working with? So I had already done some of that legwork and research in that. And that's how I knew about the platform Salesforce.
Hmm.
And knowing that it was at the time, it was still early on in Salesforce's history. But it was becoming that CRM that people, were talking about. It was customizable. And of course, you explored the out of the box options, right? So the
Hmm.
college, there's a bunch of specific systems designed for higher education. But you also know the limitations. I had just spent all the time workarounds, creating all those workarounds in a system as well. And that's where I thought, you know what, I think Salesforce could do it because it's fully customizable. And this was before Salesforce got into the higher education industry
Hmm.
at all.
Well,
And
the thing with those, and I could name a couple. I, I was there the very early parts of some of this stuff, and
mhm,
the thing about the universities are would want to buy a whole suite. Okay.
yes,
And you have something for enrollment, something for finance, something for fundraising, all this others. And it's impossible to get something that really works well with everything. There are compromises to be made. And then, because of the nature of this coded programming, making alterations was, well, difficult doesn't even begin to describe it.
oh, it's impossible, right? I mean,
Yeah.
log it here and it'll be on our roadmap maybe after we put it through a bunch of
Mhm.
conversations and meetings, and then it'll be on next year or 5-year roadmap or something like that.
Meanwhile, the vendor discontinues the software and you're up the proverbial creek.
And actually to add to that, so in this situation, we actually had that ERP, like you were saying, that it was going campus wide. And I was told to implement the enrollment version of that. 2 weeks before we were going to go live, they had a merger. They were acquired by a larger company, and they said, actually, we're not supporting that enrollment module after next year.
Excuse
So
me.
then you were put in this place like, well, why would I do it now?
God.
So
Oh,
that's how we pushed, into this rush of like, go find something. So that's when I was like, let's try it. Let's go with Salesforce and work with this system. And again, like you said, the thing that that got me excited was bringing a much higher level, right? You would sit in your meetings, your staff meetings, your brainstorming sessions, all of those things on here's our initiatives, Q1 initiatives or next year. And how many of those did you ever actually accomplish? And a lot of them was because you had blockers, right? Exactly. You didn't.
zero.
And I got so excited because when I found out, and got cut my teeth on the system and a platform that I could personally go and say, hey, we want to do this. I can implement that. And you know what? Next month, we're actually going to start doing this. And so not only is it an idea now, but I got excited that we could execute on an idea that it was no longer talking. And that's what I got really excited about, how technology and
Mhm.
seeing that. In fact, our support staff, what I learned so much about this is how nervous they got, right? Because automation comes into the conversation. And they were nervous that, hey, you're taking our jobs. The system is now going to take our jobs. And I remember talking to one of them and saying, and she was closer to retirement. And I said, hey, remember when we talked about some of these initiatives over here? And she would print out these applications that would come online. She'd print them out on a printer, go to a copy machine, spend an hour making copies of them, putting them in paper folders, and then walking to everybody's desk and putting these paper folders in their desk to review. Now with the new system, right, that application comes right to the person who needs to see it, bypassing her. So she's, again, rightfully so, seeing, well, what do I do? And being able to have the conversation of, here's the thing, remember these other things we keep talking about doing that we've never done? Would you rather your day and your time be spent standing at a copy machine or doing meaningful, thoughtful work, helping us achieve the way we do these initiatives? And as soon as they started to see that, we're shifting your time, your resources. It's not, your value is not standing at a copy machine. You have much more value as a human being than doing that. And so let's give you meaningful work.
Well, the trick, as you know, is getting people there because there's such a fear,
Mm-hmm.
and people fear the unknown. And what is I heard something that something has to be 5 times as appealing as something what you're doing now, but where people are willing to try it or something. That's not right, but it's there's a
Yeah,
thing where people would rather just stay with what they have because there's
absolutely.
such a fear. Now, let me ask you a technical question, and I may even now Salesforce I know is a platform that is immediately customizable. Now, is the platform written like in a machine language, or how does it come to you?
So it comes, I mean, it's a web interface. So for functionally, it's just a web interface. And
Okay.
most people don't even know they interact with Salesforce in one way or another, probably every day. They don't even know it. Whether it's your utilities company or it's again, like I said, a school, healthcare, it's in every industry. And so a lot of times people will see, as soon as I started using it, I started, in my own personal life, I now know the indicators I can see if I'm interacting, with the Salesforce org now as well. And so you see that it is everywhere. Now it is built on Apex, is the actual coding language. That's
Okay.
the Salesforce code. But the point of it is their whole sales pitch is it's clicks, not code, right? Highly configurable, that you should be able to do this. And what Salesforce did right, and again, I'm not even a champion and salesperson to sell Salesforce because the thing about having a fully customizable system has its absolute wins, but it's complete challenges with that
Mm-hmm.
because it's customizable. So you have to be very organized, very disciplined when you are going into that. It is not the easy button that people think or that you can see, but it can provide that.
You have to know exactly what it is you want out of it.
100%. You
Exactly.
have.
And it's not giving you sort of the advantage is it's not giving you preformed sort of interpretations, and which are have to be by definition some sort of approximation of what you're looking for. It can't be in a
Yes.
customizable custom fit. It's like buying a
Right.
suit off the rack as opposed to one that's bespoke. It may look good enough for the average guy, all right, unless you're terribly muscular or terribly fat or terribly short or terribly tall. Okay, if you're
Yep.
somewhere in that middle range, you know, um, but it even then a suit will require some sort of tweaking if it's going to look good on you. Um, but oh, I had some of these things just come to me. Um, I was told once one of the reasons why James Bond looks so good in the films is because his clothes fit.
Fit.
They
That's true.
fit, and so that they've gone to great lengths to make them fit properly, and so he looks really sharp all the time. And Taylor said to me, "You can have a really inferior piece of goods, but if it fits, it looks terrific." But as you said, but then let's get back to this whole thing of nonprofits knowing or not knowing what they want. Okay,
Yeah.
they might want the moon, but realize that it's not possible. My shtick, is fund development. That's where I kind of want to steer this thing,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I remember when the first uh, income asset searches came along for
Mm,
individuals, otherwise known as donor, whatever they call that now, donor, where they come up and they have these algorithms that'll give you your number one prospects and all
yeah,
this and whatever. Well,
that's scary.
um, I won't say that they don't have a use, but I think that they've been way overhyped. And now, with the intervention of AI, I've seen these claims of we'll tell you who they are,
Yep.
what they're going to give, how much they're going to give, and when to ask them for it. And that's just
Hmm.
not possible, not with any degree of accuracy. It's all a matter of pattern searching, and you know that, Peter.
Yep.
That's all it is. And very few organizations have enough data points on any one person to create that kind of profile. They just
Yep.
don't. So what does the system do? It takes averages.
Yes.
It's what it's doing. Um, and yet, and I know a lot of nonprofits put ultimate faith in these things. And of course, the purveyors of these nice little tools, they're more than willing to accept that faith. Um,
Yep.
but you've seen some of this, haven't you?
Well, I think too what you're speaking that I think is a challenge, especially nonprofits. And again,
Yeah.
that's where I cut my teeth in a lot of this and learning was in higher education, nonprofit. And and then you plug into getting to know more nonprofits is that capacity issue and that so many get caught up in the front end, the yeah, for lack of a better way to describe it, kind of the sexy part of what you're doing as a nonprofit, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's what we focus on is we have this impactful vision and all of that, which is great. But when there's not the appetite to put in the ugly, more seeming like menial work in the back end to say, what is our, are we gathering data? Are we asking the right questions even? Because those are harder to do and people don't that's just not as exciting and as fun. So
No.
the people aren't there to even build some of that, so you have a place to start looking at who you really are working with. And I think the strong what you're speaking to is the difference between perception and reality.
Uh-huh.
And we can perceive so many things and our perception is our reality until sometimes we see reality presented to us,
Yes.
and then you're like,
Yes.
wow, we were way off.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and that's again, I think where we can use technology rightly to help keep our now take our blinders off and say, yes, this is our hope and our vision. This is where we feel we're at, and then say, well, here's where we're actually at. And I think that bringing that sober mind to especially leadership is so important because they're trying to make decisions, right? And they're making decisions on a lot of times feelings and not the facts that can be presented to them. And so, yeah, I think digging in and actually putting time, resources, and energy into that back end to say, what are the questions we're asking, and are we actually retaining this, or do we just continue to rinse and repeat, and we're still blind and blindly just doing the same thing over and over again?
Rinse and repeat. When you were talking about the angst of putting all this data in, reminded me when I ran the Major Gift Program at SUNY. And one of the things I had very difficulty getting compliance on was major gift officers filing their contact reports with all the data that we were looking for. I mean, you'd think I was asking them to go murder their mother. I mean,
Right.
it was a what? What? Oh, we're major gift officers. We can't be bothered with that, and blah 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 blah. Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That disconnect, I mean, and that's a very real disconnect
Yeah.
because it seems so menial to them.
Oh yeah.
And recognize that that's literally the foundation building blocks for us to help you actually succeed and go way farther than
Mm-hmm.
you would have
Mm-hmm.
before. But without that, you can't do it.
So now with these automated tools, they feel they've sort of been liberated from that. Oh, I don't have to put that in. The machine will tell me what I need to know. No,
Right.
no, I'm sorry, it won't. But do you know the name? Um, oh, just it just flew out of my head. Um, anyway, the inventor of moves management. He was at Cornell. Dave, I forget his last name, but he would never endorse something like this. No, that moves management is a construct. It's an abstract construct that helps you structure your work, and now it's become some machine that you some thing and some pattern you move people through.
Wow.
He's flipping in his grave. I can tell you that right now. It's like what happened
Well,
here.
yeah. And I think the other part of it is just like where are you putting the right focus on your tools? Because I think the shiny object, everybody always runs to the shiny object. And I think that's what we have again is other shiny objects without context and understanding of what's below it. Because a lot of times people don't want to take the time to really understand and learn. Like you said, it's looking at averages, it's looking at algorithms and patterns, which it's not that those aren't helpful, but those are not you don't rest and put everything in there and then put your brain on pause and not ever look into that. I think it can be very much misdirecting you without the understanding of what am I actually looking at? How am I getting this? Because sometimes these tools, in fact, for me, when it came to systems and implementing different technologies and how do we do this, people would think, well, you're just wanting to stuff it into a system right away. Not necessarily. If the tool that works is most effective and best is that post-it note that you're still writing on and taping it to your monitor for that purpose, for the use case that you presented, then let's do that. It doesn't
mhm,
mean we have to replace and force. And I think we try to
yeah.
force tools and force technology instead of, again, asking the questions of why. What
Mhm.
am I trying to accomplish? And then we overbuild and we, trust, kind of to your point, we trust blindly some of these tools.
Well, for me, philanthropy is a people business. It's
Absolutely.
about life. It's about flesh and blood people with flesh and blood motivations. And it's all a multivariate nonlinear system. Hello. There's no way to really effectively model it. If you're familiar with a modeling device called System Dynamics, familiar with that?
Mm-mm.
Well, back in the bad old days, in the 70s, Jay Forrester was at MIT and he developed this something called System Dynamics. And oh, it was all the rage. In fact, I did my master's thesis on it actually. And it is
Yes.
useful, but what happens is, you start putting your faith in this. It's only as good as the model that's created, number one. And so then in this particular case, the Club of Rome got hooked on this stuff. So then you had Paul Ehrlich writing his book about the population bomb and this, that, and the other. None of that's come true, obviously. There's a guy for you. He never lets the crisis go to waste.
Right.
He's gone from population bomb to we're all going to be extinct and we're going to freeze. Now we're going to burn. I mean, it has a new book, and I'll give him this. He knows how to sell books.
I'm just gonna say, and that's what it that's the true
He
skill.
knows how to sell books and he's still around. He's older than I am. So, but yeah, that was a classic example of a sophisticated mathematical model that it's all dependent on the assumptions that are made. It's all dependent on it. It's a multivariant, nonlinear system. How many books out there for telling us that people don't act rationally, um,
Right.
um, and yet how many, or should I say, what percentage of fundraising case statements are made from a rational point of view? I'd
Right.
say 99% of them. you know
Right.
and so you're only going to hit 1% of the people who actually give you a gift using that approach. And I know I'm preaching heresy right now. I'm getting cringes in some people because they're people that make their whole living telling you how to
Yes.
write a case statement. And
Yeah.
not that there isn't some technique to it and that you don't have to be advisable of that. Yeah, I get it. But at the same time, if you're making an appeal to someone, you're wanting to get to know them, you want to draw them in, and it's more about them than you. Okay. And it's about understanding how you could provide something for them that they cannot purchase because it's not a transaction. It should be something that is relational. Um, I used to say it's about relationships. I can't do that anymore because what's happened, Peter, is the transactionalists have just started saying it's a relationships, and they haven't changed anything they're doing. So I can't even use that anymore. It's become a worthless word. But it's it's a dynamic where you understand that the philanthropist, in my words, driving the equation here. They are driving it. Principle one of the eight principles is donors are the drivers. And if you as a nonprofit can, quote, get over yourself long enough to realize that it's really not about you,
Yep.
it's really it's about what you're providing as a conduit. That's what you really are. You know,
Yep.
the investor, i.e., the donor, is investing, but not in you, through you. And the benefit that produces is what there is what interests them. But then again, even that's not always reliable. People give for all sorts of reasons.
Mhm.
And for instance, the largest gift I've ever personally negotiated was a sizable 8-figure gift. And yes, and it was enough to endow a full program, a college program with scholarships and everything. The donor was a scientist.
Hmm.
He wanted it in music. Now, I had trouble telling my president and other people that, did you hear what the man said? Did you
Right.
listen to what he said? Oh, but we need this. No, no. Listen to what the man says. Well, later it became evident why he was interested in that. His wife was a longtime school music teacher and he wanted to
Mhm.
honor her. That's why. Something that
Mhm.
was not anywhere near immediately obvious, you know. And it made sense once we knew, but unless you know all the pieces of the puzzle. In fact, this same gentleman had a 40-year relationship with the college, and his sum total giving to that point was barely over $1 million in 40 years,
Hmm.
and
Really?
certainly capable of a lot more. And here again, there was a reason, because for a long time, their CFO more or less ran the school like a mom and pop grocery store.
Hmm.
And this man is sophisticated financially. And he's like, I'm not putting my money down this. This is not where it's going. And you see, that's another thing that I think nonprofits forget is they're looking at the professionalism of what's there.
Yes.
They see their resources as something that needs to be stewarded. All right. Now, and in this case, we're talking about a faith-based organization where God is in the mix here. You know,
Mhm.
God wants me to be a good steward of this, and so simply because I have the resources is never a qualifying reason for doing anything. It may be a contributing reason, but never a qualifying reason. So
Mhm.
now, have you ever been involved? I mean, were you involved in fundraising at all, or just the tech side?
Not direct, although our advancement side, I did actually have a pretty good relationship with in higher education, in that side, and just a lot of the events we um, did spill over into the donor relations side and those kind of relationships. But I didn't end up ever doing it myself. One of the things though that you said that I thought was very key on that, and it kind of goes across the board and all of those things was the difference that you presented in that example you gave that I do think is very hard for all of us is listening
Yes.
because we so focused on, well, here's my initiative, right? Here's my
Mhm.
vision. But whether it is an advancement in donor relations or even recruitment or even just general business or whatnot, when I can't listen to that, I can't serve you actually well because you're actually not coming for me. Like this has I at the end of the day have nothing for you myself. But what you're coming through me, like you said, coming through me that I can serve you with, partner you with, people
Mhm.
know that they hear that and they see that. And I think that's one thing that particularly, I don't know if I could just say nonprofits, but my experience doing consulting with them, and my experience in the higher education is hard sometimes to divorce yourself from or falling in love with yourself
Oh
and what you
yes,
is
get
so
over yourself.
wonderful. And you're like, whether it's marketing, whether it's your pitch, whether it's whatever it is, and it could be great and you love it so much,
You're in love
but
with it.
you're not listening to the other people and it's not resonating with them. That guy, that example is so great. I love that because he had the ability, the capacity,
Oh
much,
yes. Oh yes.
right?
And by the
And
way,
so
he
what's the
had
difference?
he had 9-figure capacity, Peter.
That's
and
insane.
and the end of the story is, since they behaved themselves, they got a taste of that later in his life, and he was already pretty elderly. But it's
Wow.
See, they make it about the money. It's not,
Right.
it's not about the money.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
never about the money. Now,
No.
let me give you another example. You'll like this one. How many
Mhm.
times have you been in a restaurant and you have, or well, for me anyway, I've ordered black coffee, and the next question is, do you want cream with that?
Yeah.
And
Always.
like, did you hear what I said? No, you didn't hear what I
Right.
saed, obviously, or you would have never, you wouldn't have repeated that back to
I
me.
feel vindicated because I've had that same thought through my head.
If I was going to be, my wife would really, she'd have a, she'd not like it if I just sort of looked at him and said, kind of gave them a stare back, and maybe it would dawn on them. I don't know,
Right.
but she wouldn't like that too much. She likes me to be nice and cooperative, and don't be weird and confrontational and blah blah blah. Sometimes I just get that. I just kind of want to do that. She says, "Don't go into your New York mode, Peter. Don't go into your New York mode." And I'm
But
not a New
sometimes it's hard
Yorker.
to resist. I was gonna say, but it is hard to resist. Obviously, how we carry the message, is different. But of saying like this is actually a helpful tool for whatever it is, your position, your role, the organization, whatever you're doing. Is here's one way that you start to now think about it differently every time you interact with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You live different ears, and everything is transferable. None of our time is wasted, right? And any role, as small as that example is, to the big donor, none of what we learn when we're making those asks or engaging with potential anyone, right, is wasted. And it's transferable into the next role, into the next role. And so
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's hard to not, you want to also transfer that skill to somebody else to say, I can actually help you, help you
Can
here.
help you. Can help you with that. It's I liken it to an organization attracting wealth, not pursuing
Yeah,
wealth. They can actually
that's a great
attract it
perspective.
because they
Yeah.
make themselves fundable. Oh yeah, this makes sense. We can do
Yeah.
this. Now you've had. I'm gonna ask you to don't mention names to protect the guilty, but um, what do you think of fundraisers, Peter? The ones you've met, tell me, what do you think about them? What kind of people are they? What's been your experience with them? The good, bad, and the indifferent.
Yeah. So a lot of interaction with different kinds. I would say on the whole, my feeling anytime I hear that is negative. It's not a positive
Mm-hmm.
reaction because I do have my context that I come from with that is a lot of used car salesmen
Mm-hmm.
technique and interaction, and it feels very desperate, and so that's where my general experience is more negative when it comes to that, and that it's like they're so focused on the thing they're trying to do, the money that they're trying to get, that you do feel like you're not really, again, that human in front of them to interact with. Do you even know that I care deeply about any of this or not at all? I don't know. So I would say that's my overall reaction to that. I know we're kind of saying the same thing probably here, but when I do think of some of the really good people that I had relationships and I saw do so well, they never, well, and about wealthy people, right? Wealthy people don't talk about money.
No, they don't.
And neither did these individuals that were fundraising. They were never talking about money. That
No.
was never the part of the conversation. So that, and I'm thinking of two individuals actually that I worked with and that I did have it respect for because and they actually worked with the highest net worth people, right? That they were,
Funny how that
courting, and
works.
it does. But funny how that doesn't translate, it seems, on a more mass scale to people.
Because, well, there are all kinds of pressures out there. They're getting pressured from their boss to raise the money.
Right.
You're working for people that see it as a transaction, or worse, an extraction. I can tell you a story about that. But I love the way you put that. Philanthropists don't talk about money. And that pretty much is at any level above just a simple transactional gift, like someone asks you for $50 or something, or online. They don't really talk about money. And then those that are really good at engendering philanthropy don't talk about money either, because it's not about money. Um,
Yep.
so yeah, I've I've been in the business 40 years, and when I was actively working in an organization, um, you know, I altogether I think I raised about $1 billion, and but I can tell you that the high level people, the high net worth individuals, or anyone that I work with, you know, they were just a charm to work with.
Yeah.
Um, Very intelligent, very broadly read. This is something I want to give fundraisers advice to: read books, okay? Because people who are successful read books, and they read a lot of them. Um,
Yeah.
the other thing they read, if they're in business, and I work with a lot of business people, is they read the Wall Street Journal. Okay. And back when it was on paper, and by the way, Peter, I'll confess, I still get a paper subscription delivered to my house.
Hey,
Okay.
there's something nice about that.
I like that. And back in the days when they would deliver those to the rooms in the hotels all the time, I get up early and have breakfast before my first meeting, and I would always look at the journal and do a couple of reading. Well, already I had a conversation point with my meeting that morning, and I'd say, "So, Peter, did you see XYZ in the journal this morning?" And I can tell you 9 out of 10 times the answer was yes. Think about
Yep.
that. Well, right
Yep.
away, that first of all validated me to that person. This isn't just some airhead who wants money from me. Okay. I can talk to this person. Um, he's expressing interest in me. You see, it just sets the whole dynamic,
It does.
is what it does. But yeah, I love it. Listen, don't talk about money. I'm gonna do a blog on that, Peter. Thank you very much. All right.
Um, no, there was, I'm trying to think though, there was something you had said in that though that um now I'm losing it. But it was just really important, I think, in the way that, oh, I know what it was. It's kind of the idea too of creating that almost sense of, I know in public relations, right? You call it creating almost not, what's the word? Not a creating a crisis, but creating um scarcity. Scarcity. The idea of scarcity, and that somebody pursues you because you're not filling it all in for them and you're not trying to lay it all out for them. They would now come back. They want more from you.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to lay and say, this is, I have a plan for you. I have a great plan for you. Nobody
Right.
wants, but when you have laid out enough of those things, people want to come back to you and ask you questions. And that's what I saw in these individuals as well. Was it wasn't, that's where you do get pushy when you're trying to lay out everybody's life out for them and how they're going to be so great with you. Let them come to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can do that in such a respect, well, and it is respectful to me. And it's like, now that creates a desire in me to
Mm-hmm.
actually come to you, because I you said something that was so interesting and I want to come back to you. And now that trust, now in the sales, and leaving kind of I mean, everything's in a sense sales. When I did a sales job um, of selling Wi-Fi network systems to hotels of all things. It was interesting. That was for me the real test of how I learned that sales is about trust,
Mm-hmm.
because we all sell the same equipment. It's the same brands, it's the same things that we were trying to accomplish. There's nothing really that different between this vendor and that vendor and that vendor. But how many people came up and said, I trust that you are actually going to do this job in the right way. I trust that you're honest. I trust all of those things. So they didn't buy, even though they were, yes, buying the system from us, but truly they were buying trust. And that's
Mm-hmm.
when I really learned the importance of that.
It is buying trust, attracting money, listening,
Yeah.
listening. A question that I often ask a philanthropist as I'm getting to know them. So, Peter, what is it you want to accomplish? What does you want to do? And I ask that in a very open-ended, not in terms of a gift kind of way. It's pretty much a life way. But they will
Mhm.
tell me sometimes something very specific because they know who I am and what my purpose ultimately is. But here's the good thing about that: when they're allowed that freedom of working outside the lines, they almost invariably propose something that's far more expansive than I had in mind.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
then, of course, they're capable of doing this. And so when we're coming down to the monetary value of this, which is at the last moment, really, it's usually something far more expansive than I was originally intending, because they've put themselves into this and they want to see it happen. So they're willing to fund it. They're willing to put the money behind it to make it happen. Just like the individual with the music program, the music.
Yeah.
Um, that's an interesting story because he attended a musical event on campus, and this man a very wealthy scientist. Had sold a very significant medical device that he'd invented for a lot of stock in the company. Then went nuts, of course, and but to see him on the street, he looked like anyone else. He could have been shopping anywhere. Um, you know, drove a used car, wore chinos and work shoes, and he could buy everybody out if he wanted to, right? And so I remember after the event that night, I guess it was Monday, I got a call from the head of the music department, and he said he began to describe this man to me. And he said he said he wanted a program for music. Is this guy for real, Larry? And I said, George, this man is very real. And I said, were you rude to this man? Because we know what faculty is like, you know?
Yeah, yes, yes.
And he said, oh, no, 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 no. I was not. I said, this man is very real. So what I did was I got on the phone to the president. I said, I want you to give Bill a call and tell him that this has been reported to us. And is he serious? Yeah, I'm serious. Okay. You see,
That's
um,
amazing.
because I mean, I wanted to make sure it wasn't just some offhand comment and he was on
Right,
his way out the door. But no, he was very serious. But it was this man's appearance
right.
that threw George off. Is this man for real? He was kind of spacey and he looked kind of weird. And I'm like, yeah, this man's really real. Don't worry about this. I know who you're talking about. Um,
Yeah, that's such an age-old, I think lesson, right? And just what we perceive and until trust, but verify,
mhm.
right? Trust, but verify, because we're surprised so many times of what we find out.
It is. So you're in this new company. You're still doing technology, I presume. Um, where do you want to go, Peter? Tell us. I mean, you're a young guy.
Where do I want to go? Where do I want to go? Well,
But to the
being
extent you're willing to tell me, I mean, I know you want to be the next Steve Jobs, but you know,
yeah.
we're going to unveil that just yet.
No, I was gonna say I laugh just because I am an older parent, and so right now my mind is like, so I have four kids, 7, 5, 3, and 4 months old, 5 months old
Ooh,
actually.
wow. Well,
So
you held up
yes,
pretty well, Peter. I'm looking at you.
so my brain is and energy is definitely focused now. I guess on a it's pretty practical, right? I think generally that's what men think about. It's a practical a lot of times. The reason I got into what I am doing right now is yes, with technology, and yes, it was the ability of seeing how we can scale. In fact, Culture Apparel is when I started working with um, the other guy, it was small, right? It's not a company that you would buy Salesforce. It's not anything like that that you invest in that. But it's the idea of like, how can you, and for me, it was, how can I actually, had been a consultant for 10 years
Mm-hmm.
in every industry. Um, but I never got to actually see the fruits of the benefit of technology. I mean, I did at the college and that was great. So this was an opportunity for me to kind of do that again in a much different way, in a more impactful um, way, because it was small and we could, know the people that we worked with, knew the organizations that we were working with as well. So right now, I mean, in a small way, I guess part of it is just making a business both, yes, obviously successful is great financially because that means we can hire people and create a culture. It's part of the name for it. Create a culture of people where people want to work and they're going to thrive and they're going to grow. And when, I started, there was two people involved and we have 15 people now fully employed and continue to expand. And then the nonprofits that we do work with, we get to, yes, partner. We love their vision, we love their mission statement, but we get to be a part of what they're trying to accomplish as well. And with their donors, with their events, with all of those things as well. And for us, it's a practical thing. For me, it was the marriage between digital deliverables. That was my world. I spent 13 years in a digital deliverable, and I love what it can do. I love that I can see it grow this business in a way no other company like ours can grow right now. But I love the fact that there's a tangible deliverable as well with it that's connected to a purpose. And so, for me right now, my focus is just really trying to help grow this business, make an impact for those who we work with internally, but also just grow it with new opportunity. And we're right now the focus is in the custom apparel and merchandise, which is fun and neat to see. But we also expand into new areas. One of the things that we do when you talk about partnership with people is we've become more of a branding arm for a lot
Hmm.
of places
Yeah.
because we help them see, again, a nonprofit a lot of times says, hey, we're going to do our 5K run and we just need shirts with that. We want to make it, we help them see, like, let's make your events, let's help you carry your message in a way. And again, design is just one of these ways that visibly people see you and recognize you instead of just doing the standard, like this is a staff shirt. It's a cool shirt that people love to wear just because they would go
Hmm.
buy this shirt somewhere in a retail store
Yeah.
because it looks so great, but it still communicates your message. It still commemorates your event or whatever you're trying to do. So yeah, it's a bit of a global, and I know that's a very practical answer to your question. And because right now we're a year down here, this is all a new adventure for me, and to do it with my family is crazy. I left my all my extended family up in Minnesota and changed up our lives at this. So it's a little bit of an experiment to see how this works out and where it grows
Okay.
as a business.
So how
Um,
is your family adjusting to Middle Tennessee?
if we so we ended up in Franklin in a neighborhood that I would have told you was probably the last place I would ever want to live. The whole idea of a development where every house is similar, all of those. An HOA, what is that even? Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me where I need to place things or ask for permission. That was like the antithesis of what I would have wanted. However, after a year and a half of looking, we ended up here in this neighborhood and they're adjusting. This is getting to your question. Only I would say because when we moved down in June, when it was 100 degrees and warm, there's a pool. And the girls are obsessed with the pool. And if there wasn't a pool, we'd probably have to move back to Minnesota.
Okay.
So having some of those things, they've adjusted really well. The one thing that's here, as you well know, is the culture is it's very friendly. It is
Mhm.
different than, the Minnesota nice, which people talk about, but that is a passive aggressive nice.
Yes,
And
yes. Yeah, we have some of
and
that here in Idaho too. Hmm.
yeah, there's a protectionism of a lot of things, and like I'm gonna hold my cards. I'm not really gonna tell you the truth of it all, and but we have connected with a community here that is actually just been really great for the family and for the kids. Coincidentally, it is nice because the other guy in the business for Culture Apparel, he lives in this same area, and he has two girls the same
Oh,
ages as us,
okay.
older
That's good.
girls. So they've had some built-in friendships there, which is nice. And we were in North Minneapolis. And if anybody knows anything about North Minneapolis, it's not necessarily where you would choose to maybe put your family in and say, let's raise a family and go right around the block. And I would never let my kids do that where we were there. So it is nice to be in a place where you feel like, your kids can actually, be outside, do the things that, you'd want kids to be able to do. So they're
Hmm.
adjusting.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, the pool makes a big difference. When
Huge.
when my daughters were at home, yeah, we had an in-ground pool, and oh, that was the cat's meow. In fact, well, that's how they learn to swim, really. And for me, I grew up without a pool or access to one, really, and I didn't learn how to swim until I was a freshman in college. Um,
Really?
yeah, I mean, I like the water. I could never
Yeah, yeah,
get the breathing right, Peter.
sure.
And it wasn't until I was a freshman and PE was required in those days. And so I have got into a non-swimmer beginning class, and the swim coach at Vanderbilt was the teacher. And so
Okay.
we, before we were ever really going up and down the pool, we were on the side dunking our heads and learning how to breathe. Um, and once you get that down, and you're
That's
not,
it.
and they're not afraid of the water anymore, really.
Yeah.
And at first, it's mechanical at first, and then at some point, it just feel natural. This is a part of you're a part of the water now.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice, and I'm a little envious of those people that had pools when they were younger because I didn't have that, but still, uh,
We had lakes, at least. I know Minnesota grew up with all the lakes, so
yeah.
had a lot of exposure to water where I mean, you almost had to know. Parents made you, right? Because you get nervous, right, with kids around a
Oh
lake.
yeah. Oh yeah. It
So
doesn't take long.
yeah,
You can drown very, very quickly,
yeah.
and it doesn't take really deep water either. Uh,
No.
but so what do you want to add that I've not asked?
Add. Wow. Um, I don't know if I have anything that I want to add. I know I like to think, I think um what I enjoy about what I even do, my work, and whether it's personal or professional work, is a lot of this of what we talk about is the underlying themes that are always playing
Hmm.
throughout it. And I think keeping that, top of mind, because it is easy to get distracted and focused on the day-to-day tasks, which are absolutely important. For me, I think the biggest thing I've had to learn is how you grow with that. And I work with this other guy. Every Monday we meet. One of the questions we ask is, what was the only thing that last week that I could have done that nobody else could have done? And it's such a hard question,
Oh, it
right?
is.
Because you have to ask, like, is that true? Like, could have I only done that? And is it something I should continue to do?
Hmm.
Or is that, a point that I need to make a different decision and delegate that now to something else? It's true, last week was the only time I could have done it, but now that's something I do need to move on. And then what were the people or, teams or whatever it is in your organization that I helped move forward? And these are like challenging questions that I like to, again, I have a hard time answering them myself, because, it humbles you. And I think it's trying to keep a consistent humility that, yes, I have certain gifts, skills, and talents, and we all do. But at the same time, I am not a unique snowflake that can be the only one who ever does anything the right way all the time. And so I guess that's just one of the things that I want to keep top of mind to keep you humble, to move forward, because that helps you grow, because that ego starts to build like, I'm the only one that can do this. And the more I dig into that, I'm like, I'm not the only one that can do this.
No.
And that's to me is kind of what I've enjoyed, even in the recent weeks that we've been doing that, of just helping us, grow as individuals into in ways that I think we wouldn't otherwise think about it or challenge each other with. And that's
Okay.
doing that face to face is good. You can do it internally, rhetorically, but I think when you do that face to face, it has a different level
Okay.
of depth.
Thank you. I've enjoyed this thoroughly, Peter. This is great. I think we'll probably do this again. I want to revisit your experience with fundraisers, but not just yet. Um,
Okay.
but um, but thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Everyone, I've been talking to Peter Larson, who is a technologist slash philosopher. I love talking to him, and we'll probably be doing this again. But thank you for your time and for viewing and or listening, and we'll have another one of these very soon.